What's up, Barnhill family, and welcome back to the channel.
Yo.
So, Nick, it was so nice they made it thrice. Max Holloway versus Alexander Volkanovski for the third time. Here's the interesting thing for me, because we have to do a predictions video and say who we think is going to win this fight. And it's so hard to predict because the 10 rounds that we've seen have been very, very close. But Alexander Volkanovski is a 2-1 favorite, actually, to win this fight over Max, making him 3-0 against Holloway. And given how close their first couple of matches were and how good Max has looked since their first couple of matches, I find it kind of interesting that the odds makers have Volk as a 2-1 favorite.
Yeah, and it seems like the tables have turned because Volkanovski was on fire when he was rising towards the title, but Max Holloway had been there, done that, and seen it all many times over. If I recall, he was a slightly large favorite over Volkanovski for their first go.
Yeah.
And Volkanovski sort of shocked the world. And just to see how a couple of years of Max being a contender and Volk being a champion have changed people's minds, and now we've got actually the roles have swiped, and they've changed to where Max Holloway is the underdog. That's kind of crazy, you know. If you're a betting man, I think that you always want to take money on Max Holloway if he's the underdog. You know, that second fight was a bit controversial. I personally thought Holloway won that one. It was close for sure, but I did end up seeing him get 3 rounds, and if it's not 3, it was 4. I didn't think it was near as competitive as the first one. That's why I just feel like Max Holloway might be able to shock the world, throw a wrench into everything, right? You know, we can't see a clean sweep against Max Holloway. He's going to likely win this one, and then Volkanovski's going to want his revenge. So we might just see these guys fight 5 times.
Yeah, this is becoming a Brandon Moreno, Davison Figueiredo situation at 145 pounds. And listen, I'll watch these guys fight every weekend if they want to fight. They're both so skilled, and they both bring so many different tools and talents to the octagon. I think Volkanovski, and some people rag me for saying this, but I feel like for a while there, he was one of the best champions in the UFC, and nobody really gave him his due. I mean, I think he's right there with Kamaru Usman, 1A, 1B, as far as I'm concerned, with dominant champions. And that just speaks to how good I think Max Holloway truly is. In my mind, they're 1-1. I don't think there was much controversy in that second fight. I think Max Holloway did win the second fight, but I also don't think there was very much controversy in the first fight. I do think Volkanovski clearly won the first fight. So I think this fight is going to be a toss-up. And the best thing about it is, since these two guys have fought last, they've both improved. So I think that a lot of times when you get second fights and trilogy fights, they don't live up to expectation. I don't think this is going to be one of those situations. I think this is going to be another potentially 5-round war between young Holloway and Volkanovski.
Yeah, and both of them have made it look relatively easy fighting anybody else in the 45 division that's not named one or the other of them. You know, Calvin Kattar and Korean Zombie got a clinic put on him by Volkanovski. Volkanovski couldn't have looked better. And so if we see that Volkanovski come out, we're going to have some serious trouble for Max Holloway fans and the whole state of Hawaii. But I just feel like Max Holloway he has ice running through his veins. He always rises to the occasion, and he's sort of entered a new groove, right? With his highlight reel of slipping punches as he's not even looking at him, talking to the commentators, talking to his opponent, slipping out of everything, saying he's the best boxer. When you have that sort of confidence, you just operate on a different level.
Yeah.
And I think what we're going to see is Max come in there not worried, not hesitant. We're going to see Max Holloway come in game as hell, and he's going to show us exactly how good he is, how confident he is in his skills, and I think that's going to matter a lot in this fight. There might be a slight bias. I love Max Holloway. Always have, always will, and I think he's one of the best people in the sport. He was one of the best champions. That can all still be said for Volkanovski. I love Volkanovski. I think he's one of the most underrated champs, and clearly has the skill set to just be a nightmare for absolutely everybody at 45 and potentially at 55.
Yeah.
That's why it's hard for me to go against Volkanovski, but if there's one person that I'm going to pick to beat the champ, it's going to be Max Holloway.
Yeah, and you know what? You just kind of foreshadowed what I was going to say there with the 55 thing. I think Volkanovski is going to win this fight, and it's going to be another close decision. It's probably going to be a 48-47 because he's going to do everything in his power, and he's been preparing with 100% dedication to this fight because he wants the winner of Charles versus Islam. He wants his go at champ. Obviously, I think that he matches up better against Charles than he does against Islam because I think he would have a strength advantage over Charles. I think he might have a strength disadvantage over Islam and certainly a grappling disadvantage. But, we see how good of a submission artist Charles is. But then again, Volkanovski got out of one of the tightest guillotines I've ever seen from Brian T. City Ortega, who's just as good of a grappler as Charles Oliveira is. Maybe not as good, but on the same playing field. And so I think for that reason, you're going to see the sharpest Volk we've seen to date. And I think it's going to be just enough to edge Max out. And I think he's going to make his call to fight for the 155 belt after that happens.
And he's earned that right. I think it would be fun to watch him go up there, try to do the great thing of champ status, earn that if you can. But to be completely honest, he's done so much at 45. I don't know if there's a whole lot more left for him if he beats Max Holloway again. He might, hold on to the belt for a little while. It makes sense to do that and defend it one more time or so. But whether he gets the fight, and this is a lot of ifs, right? But if he can beat Max and then he moves up to 55 and he is able to go right into a title fight and get the win, even if he doesn't get the win, I think if he moves up to 55, fresh coat of paint, tons of new fighters, and maybe some of the most exciting matches that the UFC could make have Volkanovski in it with some of their top 3, top 5 55ers on the roster.
Yeah.
You're telling me Justin Gaethje, you're telling me Michael Chandler, Conor McGregor, all those guys against Volkanovski seems like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I think he matches up pretty well against all of them.
Yeah, and I think Chael Sonnen said it best. Volkanovski as a 155 contender is even more fun than Volkanovski stepping right into a title fight. Because let's say, for example, Islam Makhachev does steal this belt in Abu Dhabi in dominant fashion. Do you really want to see Volkanovski versus Makhachev with all that there is to be had at 155? I'd rather see Volk versus Michael Chandler. I'd rather see Volk versus Dustin Poirier, Conor McGregor, Justin Gaethje. How about Tony Ferguson? He's a little long on the tooth now, so that might not play anymore. But I think there's a lot of fun matchups for him at 155. And here's the deal. If he beats Max for a third time, Max is my featherweight GOAT. So what do you call the guy that's beaten the GOAT 3 times? You got to call him the GOAT. So there's really nothing left for Volk if he wins this fight at 145. And I think rightfully so, he should move up. But I think he would almost be better suited to be a contender than just to jump right into a title fight because there's more fun to be had there. And if anybody deserves to make some good money at this stage in their career, it's Volkanovski.
Yeah, the only issue with that is if he goes into contendership, he's also a main eventer. So you can't really have main event fights that aren't title fights. And he's so conditioned for 5 rounds that it would almost be a disservice if we saw him in a 3-round fight. It would feel weird, especially because most of his fights go the distance. He goes all 25 minutes hard. I just think that there's so many fun fights on the horizon for Volkanovski. This one's a tough fight. I'm going to go with Max Holloway. I think we're going to see an awesome fight. I don't think either one of these guys is going to get finished. It's going to go all 5 rounds, and Max is somehow going to get his hand raised. He's going to shock the world, throw a wrench into the clean sweep that Volkanovski was looking for. It's going to feel, if they go again for a 4th or 5th fight, like we've got a Stanley Cup playoffs or an NBA Finals playoffs type of thing where it's a best of 7 essentially. Yeah. But I'd like to see this thing happen. I'd like to see the chapter on these two get closed sooner than later and see what both of these guys have in store for us in the later parts of their career.
No doubt about that. Guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Nick and I are both predicting 15 total rounds between Max Holloway and Alexander Volkanovski. However, I think Volk is going to win. Nick thinks Max is going to steal it. Drop us a comment and let us know what you think. And until the next time, have a wonderful day.
Peace.